Hi, everyone. My name is, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Arshia Khalid. I am the Student Leadership and Development Coordinator in the Office of Student Community and Leadership Development, Division of Students at York University, joining you from my home office, also known as my bedroom. I studied kinesiology and health sciences at York, did my teacher's college here, as well as my master's. So I've been here a while. And like our keynote, I'm a proud York alum. Now, before we begin, I would like to make a land acknowledgement. Although we aren't all in the same location right now, as a member of the York community, I would like to acknowledge that many Indigenous nations have long withstanding relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis Nation. It is now home to many Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. So this keynote is part of our Peer Leader Training 2020 program. I am the organizer and coordinator of this training, and I'll be back after we hear from our keynote alumni speaker to answer any questions that you have about the training in general. I'd now like to introduce Ross McMillan, Director of Student Community and Leadership Development, to share some remarks and a welcome on behalf of the Division of Students.
Thanks so much, Hirsch. So I'd also like to extend, on behalf of President Linton and Vice Provost Lucy Fromwitz, a welcome to the Peer Leadership Training. This is obviously different from last year and different from gatherings that we may have seen. Just like to give a quick word of appreciation to the peer leadership community of practice, which has really come together to put this on under the direction and leadership of Hirsch. As well as for the various presenters who have quickly recorded various content pieces for you. And of course, a special note of thanks and appreciation to you as the peer leaders, as well as to all the coordinators who are supporting you during this time of constant change. And personally, when I was reflecting on what to kind of say and some kind of thoughts that I've been wrestling with as we kind of wrapped up the winter term and started engaging in the summer term, my mind turned to one of my favorite toys as a child, and that is the kaleidoscope. So I'm sure, like many of you, you may have had a toy kaleidoscope. You just peer through it, right? And as you twisted each twist of the wrist, you'd see a different image, and you'd have to focus in and peer in. And once again, the beauty of the image would change, sometimes be a bit distorted, but then you'd twist again, and then it would come back into focus. And I think the kaleidoscope, when I'm thinking about it, really does reflect this constant changing environment we're in. And sometimes we're twisting it, right? Sometimes the world's twisting it, or the situation around us is twisting it. And as we engage and start to get into the summer term, as we're leaving the winter term for what that was, I think it's important to just be upfront about this, that we are going to be going through a number of series of changes, and where possible and when possible to lean into that change. It's something that I think as a group and as a community at York, we're quite strong and skilled at, is embracing change and reflecting on that and then focusing in to support each other. So with that in mind, I'd like to pass over to my colleague, Allison from Alumni.
Thank you, Ross. And I love the kaleidoscope analogy. That really resonated with me as we all struggle to adapt to this new reality. So my name is Allison Gampel, and I'm joining you from my home office, which is also known as my kitchen. And I'm hoping that my dog doesn't bark in the background while we hear from our amazing alumni speaker who's volunteering his time to be with us today. Though I don't have a degree from York, York has been my home for the past 17 years, and I'm just so proud of what the university, what our community, and mostly you, our students, what you are doing to stay connected, to stay a part of the university, and to support one another. I come to you from Alumni Relations, and you are all on your way, we hope, to becoming proud alum of York, like Ursh and Ross and Mike, who you're soon to meet. And you're going to be part of a community of over 325,000 alumni. You'll get access for life to events, virtual or in person, hopefully sometime soon, programs, benefits, and be part of a real community that supports each other and supports our students. So alumni now are mentoring students, they're hiring students, they're providing scholarships, and really alumni stand behind you all and are really hoping and wanting the best for you. Our community is really exceptional, and whether it's from home, from their labs, from hospitals, our York researchers, many of whom are your professors, are actively participating in the fight against COVID that's sweeping the globe. And today we are so pleased to have Mike Prosserman here with us. And I want to just tell you a little bit about him before I pass it over to him. So Mike Pieces Prosserman is so many things. He's just become an author. He's a b-boy. I just learned that is a cool way of saying break dancer. My children say there's nothing cool about me, but that's okay. He's a university instructor and a professional speaker. He specializes in scaling startups, integrating mental well-being into team culture, innovation and fundraising, and healthy succession of long-term leaders. His new book is called Building Unity, Leading a Nonprofit from Spark to Succession. And in this book, that some of you will be lucky recipients of copies, he shares practical tools and stories about launching, leading, and leaving a sustainable organization. He has scaled a grassroots organization from the ground up as the founder of Unity Charity, an organization that uses hip hop to improve youth mental health. Over 15 years, Michael grew Unity from a volunteer group to employing 80 staff, raising $7 million, and having an impact on 250,000 youth. Michael is committed to empowering leaders in the public and private sector to build resilient organizations in today's changing world. At the end of today's talk, there's going to be a question and answer period. So as he's speaking, if you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A area of your Zoom screen down at the bottom. We will gather those questions and ask them. And then later on in the game, as you go through your semester, we will offer 20 of you some books from Mike. So without further ado, allow me to warmly welcome Mike from the class of 2008 back to our virtual campus. Thanks.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who showed up today. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now, and you know, it's a really difficult time for some people, and every day is quite different. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and thank you for taking a moment to be here with us, because I know that your time and your energy is quite special, and I do value that, and I wanted to just start with that, and also start by thanking York. I mean, this is, you know, the university that I went to, and I'm so proud, and I feel quite overwhelmed, honestly, to be able to come back and connect with folks who are still at the university or who are just beginning their journey, also in a very interesting time in the world. So I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. It honestly, I don't know, right now I kind of need anything I can get to feel connected and feel supported, and every day is different. Today was a tough day, but just to know that you're all out there means the world to me. So thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see that? I'm going to assume if I don't get a no, then it's a yes. So this is me in a position sometimes I find myself in. I'm a professional breakdancer. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. In fact, if you guys are all good, I'd be happy to share some breakdancing with you if anyone's interested. I could do that in my tiny space here, but I will do that if anyone thinks that would be fun. Also, just so you know, if you are interested to see me spin outside of this tiny space, you are welcome to follow me on Instagram at bboypieces, or after you hear the talk, if you're interested in the book, I'm going to be talking about different sections of my story and the book itself, and how that relates to some of the things that you might face in the coming years as you go through your journey at York. And yeah, so feel free to get in touch and reach out. So I'm going to jump right into it. Before I do, I'm just going to share a little bit about where I'm at right now. This is last week I visited my grandparents, who I'm quite worried about. This is my dog Olive, who is very sweet and brings a lot of joy. And just trying to do anything I can right now to create connection in this time where there really isn't a lot of that. This physical distancing. They do live in a home with other people who are potentially at risk during this time. So, I just wanted to bring a smile to their face. And same to, again, I'm here behind my screen, but I got to give a big shout out to my wife, who is a doctor, and our neighbors have been very generous to write beautiful messages to support her during these times. And, I think that's the reason I share this, is because this is really a time when we need to support each other, but also ask ourselves what we really need. And I just wanted to pause before jumping into things and sort of check in and say how are you, and really and send love, because it's a tough time, and I recognize that. And I think it would be completely, like to Ross's point, this kaleidoscope. Sometimes we have control and sometimes we don't. It's what do we do in those moments. So I'm going to share a little bit about my story that has some parallels to how I've coped with some of the challenging moments in my life, and how I've been able to both work through and overcome some of those things. So this is me when I was a baby. I used to stand on my head while watching Saturday morning cartoons. My mom got pretty concerned by this. She thought I was going to break my neck, so she put me into gymnastics, and eventually I found breakdancing, which was the perfect outlet for me. It was my community, it was my voice. It became like a second family, my crew. And I'm so thankful because I was able to connect with this outlet that was bigger than me. This is my mom here. My mom is one of the biggest inspirations in my life from the time I was quite young up until now. And when I look at her, I think about strength and resilience, because I'll share a little bit about some of the challenges that she's faced. When I was a young person, about 5 or 6 years old, my mom faced some pretty serious mental health challenges. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was 6, and I, quite frankly, didn't know what was going on. It was scary. No one was talking about mental health at that time. It felt very isolating, and our family said, do not talk about it. So I sort of bottled it up, and I really bottled up my anger and my stress and all these things I was feeling that I couldn't share with my friends or really anyone, and I became quite quiet. And then when I found breakdancing, I could just take all of that feeling that I can't even describe in words and push it out through the floor and hang with my friends and feel valued for something that I had to contribute in a time where I felt helpless. So thank God my mom has developed a balance in her medication and has been able to cope and find the right balance in life where she can paint, she can dance. She's living a beautiful life right now. And she really is my hero, because she really, I look up to her in the sense of when I need support the most, I think about her, and I tell her that often. When I was in high school, I actually, grade 11, got into Cirque du Soleil, and I also got the acceptance letter from York, which was quite a contrast at the time. And I said, every day, should I run away to the circus and move to Las Vegas or Macau, or should I go to York? And obviously I chose. It's York. I'm here. That's why I'm here. And I did that because I wanted to invest in myself and invest in doing something bigger than, selfishly pursuing my art form. Even though that would have been quite exciting, I really wanted to contribute and give back and give the thing that had helped me so much and share that with the rest of the world. This is me in Barry Hall. So if you recognize this chicken suit, I was the unfortunate soul behind the chicken suit. We started a student club at York, and we never looked back. This is over 15 years ago, this picture, and I tried to delete it, but it just keeps coming up. So I figured, why not share it with 174 people? So here we are. So this is a framework that I've put together, and it's really just a sort of combination of my experience in how I took these things that have been happening in my life when I was a young person, and I put them into an idea, which was a high school class project in grade 11 called Hip Hop Away from Violence. And we just did something. I took this feeling inside of me that I couldn't explain, and I tried to run an event. And the event was a hip hop concert where young people could share their stories about mental health and some of the challenges they were facing, as well perform and express their stress in a positive way. And honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. We were kids. We were making it up as we went along, but we had this inspiration. Hip hop had affected our lives all in different ways, and we wanted to really connect and share that gift with others who were interested. And it was coming from a place of love. So one of the things I talk about in the book is your spark, and what is your spark? What is your inspiration, your moment, the things that motivate you to get up in the day? What are the things that you do in the day that are motivated by something deep inside you that really matters to you? And what are some of the things you might not be able to take action on because the realities of life, it's a real thing. There are barriers that hold us back from tapping into that spark because the world does not just allow us to do these things. It's an uphill battle. And that doesn't mean you have to quit your jobs and start pursuing your passions, but even small ways. How do you bring the thing that really matters to you out in the world? And I'm not suggesting that everyone should do this, honestly. It's really not. I'm just sharing that experience from my own perspective, and from taking that thing that mattered to me and just putting it out there in the smallest way and seeing what happened. And that's exactly what we did. I took my passion, and we got a community of hip hop artists and volunteers together, and we took it and turned it into this idea, which actually is still a student club at York, if anyone has seen York Unity at York. And then this really became my life's mission behind everything that I began to pursue. And we were a bunch of volunteers just doing stuff and making it up as we go along. And that's really the next step that we tapped into. And again, before I started this, there were no steps. This is not a linear process. This is not like, step one, I did this. Step two, my life changed that way. It's like, this is something I've reflected on now 15 years later and said, how can I make sense of these things that happened to me in my life and possibly make them useful to others in their experience? So really, this is a framework. This is not like a step-by-step model, but we decided to just make things up, try things that felt right and see what happens, but do it with a learning mentality. So we weren't honestly causing more harm by doing things, with good intentions, but poor results. So it's really important in the stage of building that we were constantly learning. And as soon as we learned something new and something didn't work in a school or community or in a program that we were launching, we changed it and we listened and we brought people into that conversation, because otherwise, you can take this urge to do something good and actually cause harm. And I do want to caution that point, because it is something that is important in this process for me, is constantly reflecting, constantly learning, constantly listening, constantly changing, because, good intentions don't always produce good results. But my goal is to spark some of you to think about how can you take some of the things you're feeling right now with all the things changing in the world and do something about that. And that doesn't mean, starting an organization. It could be just meditating or taking care of yourself in a different way, recognizing, what's going on inside. So sometimes I felt like this guy, now I'm becoming as bald as him, so it's quite telling. But I'm just making things up. Like, we try it, we throw our plane off the cliff and build it as it sort of plummets towards the ground so it levels out. And that to me is sort of the magic of just taking that passion and putting it into something. It doesn't have to be clean. It was very messy at times, but this is sort of how I look at my life, and constantly, even to this day, just building the plane as I'm flying it. And we created this organization. Like, we took this high school project and registered a nonprofit called Unity Charity, and we were using hip hop to build youth resilience. I just want to sort of take a moment to address what's happening here in this photo. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with what a cypher is, but as a b-boy, as a breakdancer, quote unquote, we don't call ourselves breakdancers, it's a media term. Allison referred to it before. The correct term is b-boy or b-girl or breaker. As a b-boy, the cypher is a very sacred place. It's a space in which you can share a part of yourself that no one's ever seen. And that to me is like the spark. It's like sometimes people haven't seen these sparks because we haven't explored them. And the cypher is a place where you can put that out in a way that is truly supported by the community. It's safe. You're given love for who you truly are. In school there's bullying, in life there's bullying, but in the cypher, this is all about sharing yourself and being accepted for who you are. And it's such a rare space in the world, because we need more cyphers. We need more spaces where we could feel celebrated for the gifts that we truly have to offer, not because we're trying to look cool to someone else or do something because someone told us to do it, but because it's from our deep desire in our heart to express something that matters to us. And that, to me, that cypher mentality is so vital in how I've chosen to live my life and move in the world. And I do that both in the cypher and in the world. And that's really, I look at our team as a cypher, as a space where we can create intentional spaces to support people and build community and build trust in an authentic way, where we listen to the people that we're serving and we're working for and we're working with. Because it's so easy to have a sort of top-down approach when, you work in an institution, or when you work in a corporation or for the government, or even as a student-teacher relationship, like even this, where I'm talking at you and I understand that there's a power dynamic there. So how do you really build from a place of listening, from trust, sort of smooth out the hierarchy, so it's not about power and role, but it's about contribution and strength and what everyone has to offer. And that requires the leaders, the people in charge, to truly listen and to truly tap into. So it's not this, it's really this. And I know that is sort of conceptually a bit of a dream, but it also is a mentality. And it starts with truly listening. And I believe it starts with, involving people at all levels of organizations and institutions, and having people's voices not only heard, but leading conversations that traditionally might not be leading those conversations. So this is my crew. I'm going to just share quickly with you why I'm sharing with you about my crew. My crew is like my second family. When all that stuff was going on in my life, I'd go hang with these guys. I guess I didn't get the memo not to smile in this picture, but I'm the only person not smiling in this picture. Now I know I'm supposed to make the that face, but I didn't know that in this first round. But my crew is my fam, and they still are. And talking about hierarchies and some of this sort of oppressive world structures that we live in, I really treated my team at Unity that way, in terms of really valuing the contributions, the voices, the energy, and what every individual had to offer. And I think this is something that I really encourage other people to do in positions of power, because it's so vital to let go of that and pull that apart. So this is the Unity team here. And I call it crew leadership. I take the idea of building from strengths and using our voices, and I plug that into how I manage a team. I hated being a boss. I hate the word boss. I think it's just a weird word. And so I really looked at it as we're both taking a part of ourselves and putting this into something that matters, this organization, this mission. And we put the mission first. The mission came before all else. And if you're working or supporting young people, don't ever forget that mission and why you're doing this, because it's so vital in the interactions you put forward every single day. So the next step for me was like, cool, we had this idea, we were motivated, we brought it together, we tested out a few experiments, we created after school programs and assemblies and community-based programming, and we learned and we kept changing that. And then we said, you know what, it's time to grow this thing. And we see more potential, and there's people telling us that they can bring this to other places, and there's funders who are supporting this, but community members who are also now getting involved. And it was just this perfect moment to sort of take it to the next level. And that's exactly what we did. When I talk about growth, I'm not only talking about numbers, I'm talking about quality and programming and depth and reach in that way. And over the 15 years I worked at Unity, we were able to impact the lives of over 250,000 young people in 70 schools and really employ artists. And that, to me, although it was not our mission, we created real jobs for hip hop artists across the country. And we took, we were a bunch of volunteers in my basement at York in the Student Center, hanging out, breakdancing or breaking in the hallways. And, we took this and we built it, and we got funders and government partners and, free pizza and free lawyer service and you name it. We had a national TV commercial airing across Canada for free that was created for free. Like, we got super resourceful because we were so passionate, and we woke up every day and we brought our full selves to work and we made it happen. This is my email inbox at the end of 15 years working at Unity. And this is sort of where the transitionary piece began for me, because over the 15 years, I had sent over 426,000 emails. And that is about 116 emails a day, over 10 years, sorry. And I thought I was able to just keep going and keep pushing at that level, but I was wrong. And this is sort of one of the final messages I want to leave you with is we're not invincible, especially during times when stuff happens in the world. And my dad, who is another person that I truly do look up to, he struggles and battles with Parkinson's every day. It's a degenerative disease, and it's a progressive illness, so it doesn't get better in that sense. And he had a really tough time over the summer of 2015, and we thought we were going to lose him. And it, with all these emails and then this, I just broke down and I couldn't take it anymore. And as the leader of an organization that focused on mental health, I was now struggling with my own mental health, and I developed anxiety. And for 2-3 weeks, I missed work, and I told people I was sick. And eventually I said, you know what, I have to talk about this, because it's the true ironic moment of our existence as an organization. And I felt, I don't think everyone needs to talk about their mental health stories. I'm a true believer in that. But I felt compelled to tell that story to my team. And we built new levels of trust and love and care for each other. And I also got a puppy named Olive, who, indescribable how much love this beautiful dog brings to my life. There's a belly rub situation about to happen. And I had sort of a forced evolution. So similar to Ross's comment about the kaleidoscope, we're living in a forced evolutionary state right now where the world is changing, whether we like it or not. So, my heart says, okay, I dealt with, and I'm still fighting with anxiety to this day. Every day, especially right now, is a roller coaster. But like, how do I sit with that right now? How do I move forward or even stay still? And I don't have answers, honestly, but I do try to take care of myself by building that community and the supports around me. And in the worst of days, I find it to be difficult, and I still do. And last week, it was not the best. So I can tell you that this is a day-by-day experience. And then I let go. I left Unity 2 years ago because I wanted to leave it on a high note, and I knew there was something more for me. There was another spark in my heart, doing something, contributing to the world in a way that I have not yet fully realized. And I let go of this beautiful team that I still love deeply to this day and care about so much. And I let them just sort of soar and do their own thing. Because sometimes as leaders, we need to know when to step back so other people can step forward. And it's so important to get out of the way and see if these ideas that we create in the world are, if they're sustainable. And if they're not, that's okay. Not every, nonprofit or social purpose movement or business needs to exist forever. Some things just are existing for their time. But thankfully, and it's beautiful to see Unity continuing to thrive. They're running online programs right now if anyone's interested to learn hip-hop skills. And that was my re-spark. So I decided to come back and create this thing called Epic Leadership and write this book to talk about my experience so that I can support other nonprofit and social purpose leaders who have something in their heart and that they just haven't brought it forward into the world to be able to make that impact in a way that in their best way. And we have these peer support groups now where we support executive directors and senior leaders who are trying to make a social impact in the world, which we're continuing online due to the circumstances of life right now, because people really need that support now more than ever, including myself. So I just want to leave you on this and say, what is your spark? What's the thing that gets you up every day, especially when the days are hard, especially right now, and looking forward into the future? We know this is going to continue, and we don't know what the world is going to look like. So how do you tap into the things that really wake you up in the day and take care of yourself? Because that's most important. I just want to say thank you. As mentioned before, if you are interested in hearing the full story and exploring some of these steps, I would love to share the book with you. I know we're giving away 20 copies of the book to folks who are in this chat right now. Also, it's such a beautiful thing, but these little breakdancer characters, they were drawn by one of the youth alumni in the program, Serena Brenica, and she's got her own little business. So, I just try to bring those full circle moments into everything I do whenever I can. So I would love to share this with all of you. And thank you again for having me out, York. This is like, I feel very proud. So I did sort of semi-promise that I might do a breakdancing thing. Is that something that we could skip that easily? It's not.
Let's do it.
Okay, yeah, that was a weird way of saying I forgot. Usually there's a crowd of people who will be like, no, do it. But not like this is a computer screen. So it's a little bit more awkward.
Mike, we have people coming and cheering you on in the Q&A in the chat saying, we want to see it. So 160 people are sending the love to your floor.
Okay, I'm gonna play some music then. And I gotta unshare my screen and click share audio. I'm doing it, and here we go. You hear that? Okay, that's the first time I've ever done that. Thank you again. Sending love and wishing you well.
Thank you so much, Mike. Wow, I'm sort of overcome and had planned what I was going to say to thank you for what I thought you would say, but it really sort of exceeded my own expectations. Not just you brought us into, you taught me a new word, the word siphon, and I feel like I was just right there from my kitchen, on the outside of that siphon and really feeling 160 of us being a part of that. Thank you so much for your honesty, for your passion, humor, and really like sharing the love over the time that we've all talked. I haven't felt this good in weeks. So I hope I speak, and I'm sure I speak for the students in really thanking you from the bottom of our collective hearts. And we have many questions coming in, and I'll be honest, it's the first time I've facilitated a Q&A online, so I'm going to do my best. So the first question that we got came in from Catherine, and she wanted to know, I guess she wants to know, what was your program at York, and did you have anything at York or a particular professor that that changed or influenced your life?
Interesting question. Yes, I took business actually at Atkinson. It was the business management program. I think it was like the continuing ed one. So my classes were in the evening. And yeah, you know, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes my experiences don't make sense when I try to put them together, like that I would be doing what I was doing. I did definitely have some folks, some professors that stood out to me. Funny enough, again, not the ones having to do with business, but the ones having to do with like math. So to me, it's about a human thing, honestly. It's about that human connection. And when people really took that power dynamic away and treated me like a human being and really cared about me, I felt that. And I think it was my statistics professor who really was just the coolest and chillest and nicest person. And I hated statistics. I sucked at it. And for somehow he lit that spark in me to complete that course and actually get an A, which was like an impossible feat for me because I like, it's like I really struggle with math. So it's really a bizarre answer to that question, but that was my sort of most inspiring teacher.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So another question that came in from Farnaz asked, since you're a 2008 grad, it means that you are entering a changed world with the recession, and many economic experts are saying that recent grads are facing, you know, difficult times. What was that like? How did you approach the reality of graduating in a recession?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, it's interesting, not only graduating in the recession, but trying to start a charity, nonprofit, and fundraise was like, it was tough, to be honest. Like, I gave myself a deadline and said, if I don't, you know, raise enough to pay myself minimum wage in the first year, I have to stop doing this. And, you know, it became a timeline that was self-imposed, but a reality that I needed to fit into. So I just did everything I can to make that happen. And, you know, a lot of people said no. We got a lot of no's. We also got a lot of no's because we were new to the game and we were just kids, like literally, you know, we were young people being like, hey, Ontario Trillium Foundation, you should fund this thing. And they're like, how did you even get this meeting? You know, like, so I really had a hard time. I'd say for every yes, we got 9 no's. But to me, it was just, I believe so strongly in this. And not only me, I believed in it because we had a roster of 30, 40 artists who believed in it too in the early days. And we were all driving it together. So what got me up was not the fundraising, because we weren't doing that well in the beginning, but it was the mission. And that lasted for two to 3 years of our first years of being really tough to just like even get the meeting, you know. So through persistence and really, you know, putting one foot in front of the other. Like I look at it as a house, and now I can look at the house and be like, how do we build that house? I don't even know, but we just put one brick in at a time, in which we could put in at that particular moment when we had the strength and energy to do so. So it didn't just happen, and I didn't have this vision of it becoming this big thing, because at that time it was good if you even had a job, right? So I was just like, you know what? I care about this. I'm putting this brick down. I care about this. I'm putting this brick down. There was that timeline, but I hope that sort of gives you some perspective into what I might have been feeling at that time.
Yeah, it does. And it sort of reflects the comment that you mentioned earlier about trying to build an airplane while flying it, right? It's kind of all happening at the same time. And so in your house analogy, right? So you built this house, and then the next question that comes in has to do with, the children that might have been in the house. So Connor asks, I was wondering if you could speak about your process of working with youth. How do you begin building trust and creating connections?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start by saying I am very conscious of what I'm not good at. And in the early days, I was terrible at working with youth. I didn't even know what to do. I just felt like, like when you hold a baby and you're like, oh, what do you do? Like the same thing for me with young people. I just kind of like, I listened, I tried to be there authentically for them, show them that I truly care, but because I do truly care, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And it wasn't about me. It was more important that I found the best artists in the country who were also the best teachers. And or if they weren't the best teachers, but willing to learn, put them in front of the young people, because, I was skilled at building contacts and relationships. So I played that role. And we brought together a team of some of the best, youth workers I've ever met, through their authentic connection to not only their art, but their care for the community. So I really tried to remove myself as quickly as possible from that, because if it was only me, it would have been like this, broken record, and like my hair would have just got grayer, which it eventually will. Like, I really do believe that these things have to be run by the community that they're supporting. They can't just be run by one or two or a few people. So I go back to that, like, flattening of the hierarchy. Like, how do you, give the jobs to people who are the best at these things, which often are not the people who get these jobs, which blows my mind. Like, so I think we need to change that mentality. And I do speak with a lot of people who run organizations and institutions and banks, and, and I try to get that message forward, because I think the world is changing and we need to recognize talent, not, seniority or that from a certain angle, if that makes sense. So sorry, I really tangented on that one, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does a really nice job of answering the question. And I think it leads us nicely to what will be our last question for this conversation. And the question comes in from Nahayan, and I apologize if I'm butchering names. And I think it's probably a question that many of us are asking. The question is, how do you allow yourself to stay focused and motivated in times when sometimes you just want to give up and do nothing?
Honestly, and I see a couple other questions that are speaking to being overwhelmed and managing the overwhelm and managing anxiety. And like, everyone is different. And I don't want to say some blanket statement that will, try to sort of push my experience onto you. Like, I really believe we are all going through a world event together, but we're experiencing it quite differently. So I think it's about just asking, for me, myself, what do I need today? And sometimes I actually do not know the answer to that question, because I just feel crappy. So I have to really listen to myself. And that is really a skill that I'm working on learning, because in the worst of moments, it's the hardest to tap into. I do dance, I do meditation, I call a friend, but for some reason when I'm the most stressed out, I'm the most afraid to call my friend. So, I'm my own worst enemy sometimes. So I don't have a good answer, except, everyone is experiencing this differently, and reach out. That's the other thing. Like, there are a lot of resources available now, and don't be shy to pick up the phone and call a friend, or call, one of the resources that are being provided. They're not perfect, honestly. There's some of them, they might not always be the perfect experience, but just the practice of, picking up that phone and calling who you feel comfortable with, it can make a big difference. And it did for me. And if you really are experiencing like serious mental health challenges, like, I really would recommend, speak to a professional. Like, it's so important. I do it myself. I do, video therapy and stuff when I can, and, sometimes more than that, because we can't solve this stuff on our own. And especially when we're in isolation, it can feel quite challenging. So, yeah, I don't really have an answer necessarily to the question, but more just a sentiment of love, for you and all of you. And I hope we can get through this together as a community.
Well, Mike, you've definitely provided us all some inspiration and some much needed love, and hopefully inspired us to be kinder to ourselves and show ourselves some love, even if we can't be surrounded by as many people as we want. There are many more questions and comments coming in. Mike let you know earlier how to reach him on Instagram, I believe it was. And I will just thank you from the bottom of my heart and York's heart for being just such a wonderful ambassador of our university, and for spending your time here with us, for talking to and inspiring student leaders. And I'll end actually with a comment from one of our students here, from Ryan, who just summed it up and said, "This isn't a question. I just wanted to say thank you to you, Mike. We appreciate you and your experience very much." So thank you, and stay strong. All the best to all of your family members. A thank you to your wife on the front lines as a doctor, and to your grandparents. And we wish everyone well. On behalf of Alumni Relations, thank you to our students for being here and for continuing to build the York community. It's with you that we are keeping the York community strong, united, a la Mike's Unity and the Unity Club. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ursh and Ross and the SCLD team, for inviting alumni to be a part of this. And we wish you a wonderful success, students. Be well, be safe, be strong, and know that 325,000 alumni like Mike are here with you and sending their love towards you. I hand it back to Ursh.
Thanks so much again to Mike, and thanks so much, Allison. And I'd like to thank you and the Office of Alumni Engagement for your partnership and putting this together for us. This is new to all of us, and I think we're all just trying to figure it out as we go along. I know it's a little weird. I know I feel a little awkward speaking into the screen without having everyone's lovely faces to see. But I guess all we can do is do our best from the place that we're at and the place we're coming from. And so I thank you, and I thank everyone for being online today and joining us. And thank you again, Mike, for all of your wise words and sharing your experiences with us. So before we get into the training details, attendees, I would like to ask you the following question. In your opinion, what was the most useful, helpful, or memorable part of Mike's keynote presentation? You can type your answers into the Q&A section below, and feel free to keep sending in your comments as we move on into discussing some of the training details, as we'll be able to see your comments later as well. So I'm just gonna pause for a moment just to see if anything comes up. Okay, and then we can get back to some of these questions or some of these. So I'm going to pose the question one more time just to make sure that everyone got it. In your opinion, what was the most useful, helpful, or memorable part of Mike's keynote presentation? So something that really stood out to you, something that you feel is significant, that you relate to, especially within quarantine times right now. And so feel free to pop in your answers in the Q&A below. And as you do that, I will move on into discussing some of the details of our peer leader training. And then at the end of all the details, we can come back and maybe discuss some of the things that you've written in terms of things you found significant. And so I'll continue letting you do that. So just one second. Yes, yes, I can see. Great. So your responses are coming in. Please keep sharing them. As you do that, I will share the details of Peer Leader Training 2020. So these details are in your email inbox, but once again, I just wanted to answer any questions you had face-to-face or as face-to-face as virtual can be, real time. So just a quick explanation of how Peer Leader Training 2020 will work this year. So the curriculum is divided into two parts: core foundational training and advanced training. Core foundational training consists of 6 webinars, and advanced training consists of 2 webinars. So, and that's 8 webinars in total. So for first-time student leaders, so this is if you're being hired into a position for the first time, or basically anytime you're not returning to the same position you held last year, you must complete core foundational trainings, and that's 6 webinars in total. For returning peer leaders, you must complete both the core foundational training, which is 6 modules, as well as the advanced training, which is 8 webinars in total. So these details are in your email. You're not missing anything. You're not getting anything new, but that's how it's broken up. And so the deadline to complete these webinars is May 6th, so that's just over a week. If you do have questions, I'll welcome them now and answer in real time. So I'll let you send in your questions and then I can take a look. And you'll have to bear with me with the awkward pause or silences just as I read. Other than that, the PLT course is now live. You can head over to leadership.scld.yorku/PLT2020. The link is also in your emails, and you can now access the course. The enrollment key is in your emails, so you can use that as the password to enroll. And I'll stick around now for any questions you have. Beyond this webinar, you can connect with me via email as well, and I believe all of you have that through the registration link. So let's take a look at some of your questions that I can answer in real time, if you have any. So a question that I see here, no, you do not have to take any notes during the webinars. Yes, there will be tests, but actually, you know what, I take that back. Do what you need to do to get as much information from the webinars that you find helpful. So take notes if you feel that will be helpful to be able to answer the quizzes at the end. So some modules have quizzes or reflections. There's only one module, I believe, that has a proper quiz. So that is the mental health module. You'll want to take notes during that one. You can also go through the webinars and pause and go back. Once you've watched the entire thing, you can actually go back to like specific spaces or sections that'll give you the answers to the questions in the quiz. Beyond that, most of the webinars have reflection-based questions. So as long as you watch the webinar, you're paying attention, you reflected to your own life, to your own role as a student leader, you should be fine in answering those reflection-based questions. Are there any more Zoom meetings in this training course? No, there are no more live Zoom meetings in this training course. So essentially, after this meeting is over and you go on the Moodle PLT course, once you've completed all those courses, you are done with PLT, you have completed the course. So no more live interaction. Yes, so if for some reason you don't pass the quizzes at the end, you can always retake them. I believe currently as it's set up, you can try the quiz, I think 3 times before it'll make you redo the module. So you can retake the quizzes. So the length of the webinars. So normally when we're face-to-face, as you know, as some of you have attended peer leader trainings before, usually they're anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour, but we recognize that online screen time learning is very different from in-person real-time training. And so, so the length of the webinars is approximately 30 minutes to 40 minutes. The only webinar that's a little bit longer is the mental health one, just because there's more content, more important content to cover and unpack in that module. So that's the only module that's about an hour. The rest of them are about 30 to 35 minutes. So at the end. So is there a certificate when the course is completed? So as it stands, there's no current in-person printout certificate. However, once you've completed the course, it'll show up on your Moodle as a course you've completed, and then you can enter that onto your co-curricular record. To find out more about the co-curricular record, you can go on the Leadership SELD page, which is where you're going to go anyway for access to the Moodle page. So you can take a look at how to input your PLT completion as a course onto your co-curricular record. Conversation, question about the certificate. For those of you who don't, for some reason, have the access code, please email me email me at urshkhal, so URSHKHAL @yorku.ca, and I can provide you that password, but most of you should already have it. If in a disastrous circumstance, things aren't open in September, will our work be virtual? So I can only answer this from SELD's perspective, from our department, from the Division of Students, and what we plan on doing as an office. We don't have solid answers yet, but intuitively, because we're all trying to figure it out, you know, as things happen and things are changing every single day. But intuitively, I would say that we would do virtual work training. And yes, our work would be virtual. So just as we're doing through this Zoom meeting, supervisors would schedule, I guess, meetings and provide you with your work schedules and, you know, your tasks online. So yes, you'll be doing work online intuitively, is what I'm guessing. But you're going to want to you're going to want to check that with your supervisor if you don't work for SELD, and you should be in touch with your supervisor around that. So that's department based. Any other questions? Certificate, quiz. Okay, any other questions that I didn't cover? Okay, so if you have any other, so is it possible to stop the module and pick up from where you left, or do you have to restart it? You're gonna have to restart it just because of the way that it's set up. I imagine if you need to stop it, make sure that you're noting down the time that you stop so you can come back and start from that place. So if you have any other questions about PLT, about the course, any other logistical questions that you have, feel free to email me and I'll try my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Other than that, the course is now online. You will be able to access it. I hope you took something away from this keynote today. I know I did. It was very inspirational. And I hope that you continue to be well and keep safe. Take care, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day.